I take particular pleasure in this talk that we're about to experience. I, as a boy, used to live in Africa, 1962, 63, in East Africa, the country of Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, the capital city. I lived with an Air Force family, and there have been UFO reports from that country. One in particular, back in August of 1970, near the city of Asmara, a UFO went over a village, and it destroyed a bunch of tukels, which are what they call houses in Amharic, and it was a very, very celebrated case. I first learned of the case we're about to hear about directly from Dr. John Mack, professor at Harvard, and was instantly enthralled by it. I am particularly pleased to now be able to hear the whole story, and as Tim said, we're going to have some special guests sitting up here on the stage and about halfway through the talk. But with that, I'd like to draw this to a close and invite you all to join me in extending a warm welcome to a gentleman who's made 3 trips to Zimbabwe to collect material. He's been working on it, I gather, for years. Would you join me in extending a warm welcome to our principal speaker, Randall Nickerson.
Hi guys. Let me just get a little acclimatized to the stage. Thank you, Peter. And I want to put a big thank you out to McMenamins, Tim, and everybody that I've met. There's been so many people, and they've been really fantastic. And also to you guys, all of you. I've met so many people from the audience. Yeah, I really appreciate the, I guess, generosity and kindness and openness. And hopefully, I can share tonight some of my thoughts and journey with this story. Maybe open our minds even more. Okay, I'm going to have a sip of soda here for a second. So, Africa. So that's where this story took place. But before I start that, I would like to, who am I? So I am a filmmaker. I've been in the film business since I was 18. As an actor, I did all kinds of things, camera work, and decided to start making movies. Because I wanted to actually share stories rather than be in them, you know, to be part of the storytelling process. I'm also a wildlife photographer, aerial photographer. That's what I do, and I'm a piano technician. And inadvertently, through this film, I've had to become an investigator. I did not plan on that. I thought, okay, I'm going to make a movie about this great story. But you end up having to do a lot of research and verifying your data and collecting data, going through archives, researching. Just to give you an idea, and I come from a nuts and bolts kind of family. My dad was a mechanic, and I grew up working in his garage. We restored cars, worked on cars every day. So I'm pretty grounded in the physical world, if you want to say that. Cars and airplanes and things like that, working on them, and electronics. And on the other side of my family, my mom's a psychologist and my sister's a psychologist. And so I got another dose of I guess, the helping with the therapeutic world. My sister deals with trauma survivors around the world. So I have a lot of different influences that make me who I am. But let me go on and carry on to something that has happened during the making of this film. Is I've met a lot of people around the world. I've traveled to Africa 3 times, England, all over Europe, Canada, United States. And some of these things that I've learned about this phenomenon is it's global, it's worldwide. It's remarkably consistent in the reports that come from all over the place. And this is kind of my big thing. The reluctance of witnesses to come forward. I've had many people come to me, and because they know I'm doing this movie about aliens and this event, and they've shared their stories with me in private, and they've told me not to share it with anybody else. You know, there are people that have shared their stories with me that have not even shared it with their families. And I find that it makes me pretty sad. I find that sad that we can't, that we keep these secrets, you know? And if anything that I want to do in my life is help to change that, so we do not have to keep those types of secrets. And in the process, it helps us learn and become better as human beings. So, appreciate that. It's dear to my heart. And there's no established place for those who have experienced the beyond the normal human experience to report and get help if needed. Not that there's not UFO reporting centers, and I think that's very valuable. But in our society as a whole, we're just not supporting in our medical field, or it's beginning to actually change in the psychological field, and largely due to Dr. John Mack's work early on. But it's something that's necessary, and it's something I call sort of a solitary confinement. This quietness, these secrets that we keep. I mean, we all have common experiences of all kinds, yet we keep them a secret. I don't know if we all have them. We all have these things that happen that we don't talk about. And one of them that I think of is, when you're thinking of somebody that's in England or whatever, and they call you, or somebody in your family, you feel, all of a sudden you started thinking about them, the phone rings. I find that a really common experience for people, but we don't talk about it, and how does it happen? Yeah, and this is more of the same about how extraordinary human experiences are kept secret, even from family and loved ones. And many involve trauma, and if the individual does not share the secret, the trauma that has no chance of being healed. Yes, so, yep. The atmosphere in our society does not have proper outlet for people to share extraordinary experiences, such as alien encounters. Dr. John Mack started a program, and the reason Dr. John Mack is important, well, he's important in his own right, because he really put this field on the map in a different way in the White Palace, so to speak, or the medical community. But he started a program called the Program for Extraordinary Experience Research. And that program was exactly what I'm talking about, that people had a place to go to express themselves and to talk about unusual experiences that they had had without feeling like they were going to be ridiculed or not heard. And that's kind of the most important thing, is being heard. And this is I think that the majority of people that have had experiences of this kind, alien encounters, or encounters with aliens or craft, I think the majority of them have not come forward. And I think in the process, we're losing a lot of information that could be valuable. So I just want to, hang on one sec. So the great part of all this is change is happening. And I think it happens slowly, like everything, like women's rights, civil rights, gay rights, you name it. It never happens overnight. And I think it's the same with this phenomenon, with extraterrestrials, or the understanding that we are not alone. It's taken almost 80 years already, but that's kind of the way it goes. Like there is, it takes a long period of time to change a worldview. And slowly we're making that progress. And this year, I think we saw it. In the last 10 years, we saw it because we started seeing planets. Science has actually been pushing this in a great direction for at least 10 years since we just started discovering planets around suns. That was huge. And not only that, but we started to discover planets that could support life, potentially support life, which has opened the question of extraterrestrial intelligence wide open, because we don't know. That was a huge advancement, and I cannot say, I know Jeremy spoke about it earlier, but it cannot go without mentioning the New York Times article that came out in December. That was huge. We had a military program with military gun camera footage released to the public. That was huge. It was the first time ever that this phenomena has been recognized by a government agency since 1969. And there was actually not quite a lot of rebuttal to that release of information, which was a surprise. But what does this all come down to? I'm going to get through this and get to the story in a second. But it comes down to worldview, and this is something John Mack spoke about a lot. Our worldview. Our worldview is what we think is possible. Our worldview is what our world is, what we believe in, what's around us, and there's certain things that we don't want to have in our worldview because they're scary, or we don't know, or they disrupt our whole identity of who we are. It's very difficult to change a worldview. John Mack spoke a lot about this, and he was right. He basically boiled it down to, this is a worldview issue. That's the UFO problem, extraterrestrials, aliens. It's a problem because it doesn't fit into the worldview that we've decided upon, or most of us have decided upon for a long time. And worldviews take a long time to change. Oh, I went the wrong way. So, Copernicus, when he went through changing his discovery of the fact that we were not rotating around, the universe wasn't rotating around the sun, was a big deal. It took hundreds of years for people to accept the fact that we were not the center of everything. And this is a very similar thing, the alien extraterrestrial topic, because it's a place, and several people have said it, Dr. John Mack has said it, many people that I've run into, that it's the biggest blow to the human ego, which I believe is true, because we all think we're special. Not all of us. Some of us actually are open to the fact that there may be another more intelligent species out there, but a lot of us don't want to let go of that specialness. Like, we're the top dogs in the jungle of the planet or of the universe. So I think that when it's been spoken about, I think that's the part that is changing. It is actually changing. It's just going so slow that it's hard to tell it is moving forward. But it has moved forward, and this year is, I believe, probably going to be one of the most interesting years we've had in a long time as far as information release and education of not just the public, but the entire public, One of the things I noticed when this New York Times article came out was friends of mine who don't believe in UFOs think like, why are you doing this movie? Very skeptical. And And they saw this stuff on ABC and CNN and Fox and NBC, and they're like, this is legitimate. I'm like, yeah. So that was an exciting turn of events that I didn't think I would see for a long time, and I'm glad it's happened. So what are we talking about today? I did want to share some thoughts, but we're talking about a film I've been working on for 10 years now. And this is a quote from Dr. John Mack, who interviewed some of these witnesses, and it's a really great question. If it is real, what does it mean? These are some of the drawings that these children did that witnessed this back in 1994. I'm going to slowly take you through this event. I'll basically show you where this occurred. This is the continent of Africa. Some people don't know it, but right here is Zimbabwe, right here, where this occurred. And we'll zoom right into the school ground where this event took place. Just to give you an idea where we're at. It's a very rural community. It's about an hour outside of Harare, the capital city of Zimbabwe. And this is the schoolyard. So, Africa is a beautiful place. It's one of the most beautiful countries I've ever been to. I've been 3 times so far, and I can't wait to go back. Every time I've gone back, I've learned something new about this event, found another witness, and had gotten more photographs from the school, which this is a drone shot that we did of the school. The school started in 1990. It was first created. And this is where the kids were during that time when the event came. This is their playground. So the basic facts on this were, it was a September 16th morning break at 10:30 in the morning at the Ariel Primary School in Zimbabwe, a town called Rua. Ariel was a Christian school, very mixed. It was a mixed population of mixed race, people that were farmers in the country, white farmers. There were a lot of people that were missionaries, and there were native people that were there. And it was an incident at the primary school, but also with local residents. And the report was that over 60 children saw a silver oval round craft with creatures of some sort wearing black skin-tight suits, small in stature, with large heads, large eyes coming out of this object. And these are some of those children, some of the pictures from the school. And this is their school bus back in 1994. And I'll just give you a little, these are some of their class pictures of some of these children. And they were all asked to draw after this incident. It was a rather brilliant idea of what they saw. So 60 children drew different pictures of what they experienced that day. And they also did something not too many people know about. They were also asked to write in their storybooks what they had seen. And, you know, basically a written version of their drawing. These are just some of the drawings. So this is I did a whole layout of the school from a satellite and collected satellite images all the way back to '94, at least the ones I could have access to. But this is the playground. This field right here was not there at the time. It was all bush and grass. So this is the school itself. These are the classrooms. That's grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. These are all the other classrooms, and this is the main building here, the staff room. Can you guys see the LED thing? The laser? Okay. Just checking. Okay, and they have a swimming pool way out here, but it's actually a really large playground. There's an upper field here. This is like the main playground here. And this object was seen here first, right there. So the children had gathered in this point here, because they saw, a few of them had seen it in the sky and called the others over. And this is where most of them gathered. They were right here and here. And they looked out toward this object. There was an adult on the field who was in a tuck shop, which is like a convenient, what do you call it, where they sell candy and, different things for the kids on the playground. And it was right here, and I always wondered, well, what did she see? Did she see anything? And she did report later that she had heard a whistling noise from that area, but she couldn't see it. This really interests me, actually, because her viewpoint, and I measured all this stuff out, the window that she was in, it was a very small window, but her viewing angle was that, looking this way. She could not have seen any of this going on. And she actually said she didn't, but I wanted to go through and actually see how this, what the actual reality on the ground was. And the teachers were in a staff meeting here. Their view from here was this way. They could not have seen the children. They could not have seen any of this over here. So those were the only adults there. And they happened to be doing a staff meeting about wages that day. And then there was I'll just basically, let me see what the next slide is. Basically, what was reported, and it was covered by the BBC 3 days later, that this craft had landed there or hovered or, was seen by them all there, and that they saw these creatures getting out of it. And at least one of them came and approached them here, because the boundary of the playground was here. There were logs right along here, separating them from all the grass and the wildlife out here. But that being had come up close to them. There was sounds reported by the kids. A lot of the kids also said that this event went on for 15 minutes, which is an awfully long time. That came from two sources, and I'm not quite sure what happened in all that time, but it is a curious fact. But from what has been reported, this being approached the children and stared at them. Pretty much that's what occurred, what was reported. And it made me, somebody had said that, it was like staring at, it was one of the children actually, who said that it was like a grandmother staring at a child who'd never seen a child before. And the reports that came from different children that I've interviewed have talked a lot about that contact, that eye contact with these creatures from God only knows where. What was interesting also about this incident, because I went there in 2008, and this is the headmistress, and this is the area where this craft had set down. Let me see here. Once I got there, I was just blown away to be there, because all I'd seen is these archival interviews from Dr. John Mack. I had no idea the school existed until I called people. They told me the school had burnt down, that the school was closed, and I got in touch with a reporter from South Africa who had a relative that was still going to the school. And as soon as I found out it was there, I got on a plane and flew to the school. It was not easy. It was a very politically challenging time in Zimbabwe. There was violence in the country. But when I got there, I found out, wait a second, it wasn't just John Mack who went and interviewed these kids, it was the BBC. Not just the BBC, but a war reporter for the BBC who, it took me years to actually finally find him, but when I talked to him about it, he said, I've been in war zones in Rwanda and all these other countries in Africa, but this story really scared me. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, some of the videos that he shot, but it really disturbed him on a deep level. So the first trip to Zimbabwe was 2008, and one of the things, when I got there, they had all the kids' name on a wall. And it was the first moment when I was, wasn't thinking about tracking these people down at the time, but I had their names. And I also had Facebook. And I had all these other avenues to find these children that actually witnessed this. So that was a decision I made in Zimbabwe at the time, was like, I'm going to find them. And that began a much longer journey, because a lot of the children had moved to different countries all over the world. Facebook was enormously, I gotta say, I have my problems with Facebook, but boy, is it a great research tool if you need to find people. So I began to interview witnesses, one at a time, and finding them and hearing basically the same story they told as a child. Different witnesses. And one of the things that I eventually, over time, I collected all the archival, the BBC's footage, the South African Broadcasting Corporation had also filmed another woman who was with Zimbabwe TV. She also interviewed these children. And then 2 other journalists had recorded these children. So I had 6 different sources, 6 totally separate interviews of these children. And they were all still telling the same story. That was remarkable to me. And there was time in between. And then, so there was 94, 95, 97. And then when they were interviewed by me in 2008, 2010, 2012, and the story didn't change, which says a lot. It says a lot, especially the younger stuff, the archival media, when they're telling these stories and not changing the story, because they're kids. They could change the story. But they were reporting something, and it's obvious when you see all the interviews that they're reporting something they saw. They're not looking at their friends saying, is this the right story to tell? You know what I mean? There's none of that. None of the things that you would expect to see if they were confabulating a story. So in 2016, I decided to take one of the witnesses back to the school. It was somebody who had been traumatized quite a bit, I would say. It was something she never got to be able to share with her family and be believed. And so that's part of this movie as well, is the journey of one of these children back to face what she saw back then. And that's one of the things that all these kids, a lot of them, it was like it happened yesterday. It's not something you forget. So what makes this story unique? Well, some of the things I already said, but it was covered by many media outlets. That was essential, really, to say this had a lot of credibility. It was not a typical report. It was daylight. Did not follow previous narratives of alien contact in the sense that they were in black. That's a rare event. I mean, you hear of aliens in gray, sort of the same description. this report was, there's only 3 others that I know that occurred where they're in black suits, skin-tight suits, and one of those was in Africa back in the 60s. I don't know where they could have got that information. If they were making up a story, I don't know where they got the information, because I had a hard time getting that information. And I don't believe that they were making that up. There were other witnesses in the country. This I found also. There were multiple anomalies also in the country as well during this time. It basically took place over a 4-day period that the reports came in. The Ariel School happened on a Friday. One of the most interesting reports that I got outside of that was 3 pilots that were flying the night before from Botswana to South Africa. And they witnessed something at 25,000 feet outside of their aircraft on the left wing. And then it crossed, and it was like a ball of light is how they described it. But then it moved, and it went across right in front of their airplane at an incredible speed, and they lost it over the horizon in 2 seconds, which is an enormous amount of speed, because at 25,000 feet, the horizon's much greater a distance. And another woman that witnessed something that the morning of the Ariel School event, who was a farmer who had gotten up at 5 in the morning, which she normally did, her and her husband, and saw an orange ball with a flat bottom. That's how she described it. That was in her, she had a chicken run, and it was she could see it from there. It was quite a distance away, but that was the first report on that morning, and then the Ariel School event happened at 10:30, started around 10:30 in the morning. So why make a film about this event? Well, I have no idea. It's an incredible story. As soon as I started to find out more and more and more about it, I was like, this is just an incredible story. You've got the BBC involved, you've got a Harvard psychiatrist involved, you've got a playground of kids who are just like the most honest, sweet things you've ever seen, and all this archival footage that proves that, that is not something I have to, it's just there. The authenticity of the people, it's there. The consistency of the interviews over time, so true and so important. It was investigated by Cynthia Hind, who wrote the only 2 books in Africa on alien encounters. It was covered by the BBC correspondent, who I found, it took me 2 years to find this guy. It was tough. And boy, when I found him, I was really happy, because he was the guy that first came there. He didn't believe these kids. He came from a war zone in, oh God, it wasn't Namibia. It was not Botswana. It's the country above Botswana. Anyway, he came out of that war zone and came to cover this story. So, and he's asking the kids, was this a helicopter? He was very grounded in reality. But the kids were just like, no, that's not what we saw. No, that's not what we saw. So it was covered by other credible news agencies in Africa, 6, and then it was covered by Dr. John Mack, who's a well-known Pulitzer Prize-winning psychiatrist who did some amazing interviews with these children, because he had worked with children. John Mack, I don't know if people knew this, but 20 years of his work was working specifically as a child analyst, child psychiatrist, child analyst. So he had a lot of experience working with children. Am I going too fast? Okay. I know it's a lot of information. I just want to get as much in as I can. Okay. So making a film. I mean, I'd done short films, 5-minute shorts, and my last one was on psychology, about the psychology of listening and the importance of that in therapeutic environments and in life. When we listen to somebody, it makes people feel heard, and sort of gives that person a feeling of accept them or that you honor them in the process of listening. And then I went to this film, which is a totally different animal, much longer. When you go from a 16-minute film to a full feature film, it's a big, big difference. And it was also very, very hard to find funding. It's been a challenge throughout this process because of the travel involved, because of the way I want to do this film. When I realized how good a story it was, I wanted to get the best story editor I could get. And I got one of Michael Moore's editors who he edited Fahrenheit 9/11. He's excellent. He won the biggest award for editing at the Cannes Film Festival. And I've been really just like, I want to take this to a different level for this phenomena. You know, I want to break into the mainstream with a movie that's not special effects, not that, but like a people story, something that'll make a difference. So I've been working with 2 editors, and we've moved along quite well. But it has not been cheap, that is for sure. Finding the school, finding the witnesses today, finding the reporters, all that happened. Researching the whole 4-day period. And here's another thing, and Jeremy brought this up the other day, I don't know where he is, but when you research something, like, it's so valuable to check everything out. I checked out what was going on in space. I checked out what was going on at the White House or any kind of global event, where the earthquake was that day in South America. And a private plane crashed into the White House that day. There are a whole bunch of different events just to see, like, what was going on, like what else could possibly have explained this. So there was an awful lot of research, and I think it's necessary to do that. Absolutely. Like, it's like, if you want to find out what's going on about something, you kind of have to look at every possible angle. And there's some interesting things that come out through that. I actually found a sighting the night before that was she took pictures from 2 women in Mexico City. There were other events that happened. 1994 was a huge year for sightings. That Ohio thing happened with all the police, chasing these things around. It was a big deal. Anyway, so it's good to search all avenues if you can, and I think it's important to see actually if you got holes in your case, because like Jeremy spoke it was Friday, the other night, last night, about about just reassuring. Well, the BBC reporter told me. He said, when you work for the BBC, you have you can't just have one witness. You have to have 3, possibly 4, if not more, to say this story is actually real. So it's that kind of mentality of like just going further to make sure, okay, this did happen at this time, this did happen, and getting as much evidence essentially in support of the fact that that did happen. Okay. So recovering of the archival, yeah, that was huge. I mean, that really makes this movie, because it's real. And the other part of filmmaking is dealing with Hollywood, which has been very interesting. I don't know too much to say about that, except it's a business for them, and they are, as far as when you're a smaller filmmaker or first-time big filmmaker type of person, they tend to want to take advantage of you. I've got to say, I've had a lot of people try to knock me off this course on this film. Yeah, and not in a conspiratorial way, but just people that want to take it for the money and try to sell it as a, they want to add special effects and do all this stuff and change the story. And And I've not done that, and I've stuck to the story, and I'm not going to sell out on this because I know the story probably better than anybody, but I think it's time to appreciate that. Yeah, to tell the story the way it should be told, with honesty and and something that everybody can see, not just people that understand or know about this subject, but people that I know, friends that don't believe it. Okay, so, yeah, and just some other thoughts. How long is this going to take before we really come to the point where we accept that this is very real? One of the things I've said before is I really do hope there's somebody looking at this at our top levels of our military and government. I'm pretty sure they are. But I'd be really disappointed if they weren't because of how important it is. We as human beings, this was a stream of thought. We as human beings do not understand everything by a long shot. But pretend we do. It makes us feel safer, but not necessarily smarter. And I think that's most of humanity, in a sense. We like to feel safe, but that does not necessarily help us. And if we don't know something, we sure should be curious, particularly around this issue, to find out and apply resources in that effort. I'm going to just skip that one because that's pretty deep too, but the reason this phenomenon has not gone away is because the reports have not stopped for 80 years. And most importantly, why is this important? If we don't know something, we should be curious to find out and apply resources to that effort. But because if another species that is more advanced than us, more technologically advanced or more intelligent, older than us, it's really important that we know that because they could decide our fate. That's really true. I totally believe that. We're looking at something that can influence our humanity, our planet, our direction. Maybe in a good way, maybe in a bad way. I don't know. But I think part of my drive is we should know. We should know as much as possible about what's going on so we can understand how that could affect us. So just a brief thing, and I'll show you a trailer of the movie. But where the film is at. It's taken 10 years so far, and I do not feel bad that it's taken 10 years because friends of mine at Breakthrough Films, their first film took 14 years, and it took place in Africa. And they were always telling me, I was on year 6, and they're like, oh, that's nothing, man. I'm like, you're kidding. But when you make a film on your own, like an independent like this, boy, you go into a lot of debt, and because you just got to get it done. But it does take time. But over the time that it's taken, I've had more people come forward. I've had more information come out, more archival footage come to me that I wouldn't have gotten if I had gotten fully financed right away, and I would have been done in 3 years. So it actually has worked out in a way. We have a solid rough cut. It's an hour and 56 minutes, and it is really good. I've screened it for some industry people. They love it. It flies by. You don't even realize it's an hour and 56 minutes. You don't even realize it. People are stunned, which is a good sign. When you lose track of time when you're watching a movie, that's a really good sign that the movie has got you engaged in whatever you're watching, what the subject is. That's a good sign. So I'm happy about that. Funding cannot be, God. Funding has not been easy. And I want it to be the best work that it can be, so that this film will be able to reach a wider audience, more than a traditional film on this topic, to bring about change. And this story has what it takes to do so, because it's about people. It's not even really about aliens. It's about aliens because they were there. But this film really concentrates on the human being and the human being's, how it's affected the human being in their thinking, emotionally, how it changes their worldview, it's changed people's lives. And I think that's many people that have gone through these experiences, some out in this audience, I'm sure, it's something that changes your life. And that's one of the things I really want to speak about, or have the movie speak about. And it definitely does that. So we're 3 months away from the completion. I'm meeting with a funder on Wednesday. I've got my fingers crossed. She's been really wonderful in the past, very supportive. So we are still trying to raise that last $100,000 to get it done. We've got about 3 more months of editing. I'm doing a lot of stuff now. You have to do all this legal work and permissions and all this stuff. But yes, so I can't wait. I have been working on this for 10 years. I can't even tell you. Oh my God. But I'm glad that I'm going to stay through absolutely to the very end. It's the people that were involved, the people that have helped. I've gotten so much help from the witnesses and the people, everybody that was involved, the reporters, because they all believe that this story happened. Like the reporters are all like, yeah, this was real, man. And interestingly, all these people that were connected to this story, whether it was teachers or reporters, they had kept everything from that day. They kept their journal, they kept pictures, they kept anything that happened that day because they knew it was important. Whatever happened, they knew it was really important. And I'm super glad that they did. Okay, I'm going to show you the trailer. This is one of our trailers. It's about, well, I won't tell you how long it is. It's not that long. But I had the opportunity to meet this man, and he was a big fan of this story and has had encounters himself. I'll just let it play.
I was not so frightened in the war zones of Angola or Rwanda as I was when this story hit. Ariel School, 19th September 94, 12:12 local time.
Just come and sit on these chairs along here. Did you all see something?
Yes.
Were you afraid?
Yes.
And what happened, Guy?
Well, it was just glinting in the trees. And there was a man.
And what did he look like?
His face was like this, and his eyes were down here.
I hope that this film gets massive exposure and it gets people thinking about experiences they've heard about and maybe going and researching the history. It's there, and I know viewers that are watching this, they will see it and they will feel kind of vindicated, and they'll go, boy, those kids are telling the truth. And I was telling the truth when I had my experience, and it's going to provide a lot of reinforcement. It kind of gives me a sense of satisfaction and vindication, really, because I've had an opportunity to speak about it in many different media, and it's amazing. Everywhere I go, interviewers say to me, well, I've had an experience, or my wife has had, or my father, or once something happened to us when we were kids, and so.
Sure, it wasn't a Harrier jump jet or an aircraft?
No.
Something that the Zimbabwe Air Force
It was like
got?
in a disc.
This one thing sitting on the side and another thing sort of like running up and down the top.
The one had long hair, but the one who was standing in front, he didn't have any hair at all.
He had a big head and big black eyes.
I was just a hard-ass journalist, skeptical as everybody would be. And it was the same story. And I started getting goosebumps.
I don't know, I just thought it was some kind of alien from a different planet.
I was out of my depth. And then I got in touch with Harvard University and Dr. John Mack.
Do you think it's possible that one imaginative child had a story and kind of stirred the rest of them?
That I don't believe. I honestly believe they saw something, but for me to actually draw a conclusion as to what it is, I don't think I could do that at this point in time.
What is going to emerge from this story is that the children who were in that schoolyard really did experience a supernormal event.
It was in between the gap of this one distance behind this pile of wood.
I can see there.
They can't have been fabricating this.
My heart went faster and then slower and then faster and then slower, all at the same time.
Now, was that was excitement and...
Yeah, excitement and scariness.
And scary. You heard a noise in the
Yes.
air? What was it like? Like a roar or a buzz or a hum or what kind of a noise?
It was like someone was blowing a flute.
And that scared you?
Yes.
And what did you do when you were afraid?
I ran away from it. It looked evil because it was just staring at me.
As if to do what?
As if I wanted to come and take us.
I know this is hard. I know it's hard.
John Mack seemed to have brought out that information because we just took it in a very analytical way. We just said, what did you see? And what did the aliens look like? What did they do? But we never thought there might be some kind of emotional, deeper effect.
You were saying that you thought that they maybe were trying to tell us something, like about the future. Can you say more what your thought is? What was it like?
It was like in the world, all the trees will just go down and there will be no air and people will be dying.
I don't think the world has given John Mack and his work the recognition that it deserves. I think maybe this film may help. In time, I think he may be seen as a figure that really shattered convention in the face of governmental and societal oppression. This isn't new. We've been looking at this since the Bible reported Ezekiel's wheel. I would hope that it builds an interest so that people go back and look at the research that has been done before this and say, this is not new. He's not onto something new here. He's just verifying it in a scientific way with his academic credentials. And I guess the button on it all is the case that he was working on, which is the subject of your documentary. You bring the children into the modern age.
How about you? Good, yeah.
We saw this and the beings from the stars.
Oh God,
That's Ariel School. This is where it happened. This is where the alien lived.
I didn't want to deal with
it.
Coming here and remembering all this stuff. So 20 years later,
We still have the same story.
I don't care if people think I'm crazy.
Because you're not. It happened.
You bring the children to a point where they are interviewed now, many years after the experience. And again, it points to where and how the planet can benefit from these people's experiences.
They do exist. Like I say, I'm a Christian in my beliefs, my core beliefs, but that doesn't mean to say that I think there's no other types of forms of life that exist in the universe.
I don't think we need to worry. I think we're just curious, just, fascinated by other beings in the universe. I think we would be doing the same if we had the technology.
It taught me to never doubt myself. We're taught to believe as a society that, only these things can happen because this is what it has been. But you have to have an open mind. This experience has taught me that.
If there was one experience I'd like to relive, it would be that particular experience, where that's led me to being who I am today.
He has never stopped talking about it, and he has believed all the time that it did happen.
It's a long story, is the answer. I think the answer will come maybe in this lifetime, maybe in the next.
This is not going to end it all, for sure. It's not like it's only the beginning.
We can't change the world, but we can make a difference.
We can.
That's the message I would have in my heart from what I experienced.
We've got a long way to go to make the world aware, and I think this film could be what sets it right. I'm really excited to see it.
Well, thanks for viewing that. I really hope this film will make a change and difference in the world on how we look at this phenomenon and how we judge people that have come forward. And hopefully, in the end, help us. But I have two guests here. One of which is going to come up right now or soon. Her name is Liesl. She was one of the witnesses in Zimbabwe in 1994. Just to tell you a little story, when I first got the footage from Dr. Mack in 2008, she was one of the girls. I was like, God, she is just so convincing, you know? And she was one that really struck me a lot and strongly. And I remember thinking, like, God, I gotta find this girl. And I did. And I finally found her, and we communicated, and I met her in 2010, was when I interviewed her first. And I just want to welcome Liesl Fields. You want to go up here? And she's come all the way from England, by the way, which is just amazing. And let me give you the microphone here, set you up.
Thank you.
So would you like a picture of yourself on the thing, or the school?
The school, please.
The school? Okay, I'm just giving you options. Okay. This, oh yeah. So this is the girl I knew first. It's her as a child. So I'll just be here.
Yeah, okay.
And you got some more?
Yeah. Hi everyone, my name's Liesl. I'm one of the witnesses from the Ariel School sighting that happened in September 1994. I'm now 35 years old. I have two girls. My oldest is 5 years old, and the youngest is 18 weeks. I moved to England in 2003 from Zimbabwe, and that's where I still reside. I was 11 years old and in grade 6 when I witnessed the sighting. We were all playing in the playground when I noticed a silver saucer that just came and it hovered. I then saw two beings come out. I didn't see them actually standing, they were like hovering. They were very white in color. Their eyes were really big, black. They were wearing like tight black clothing, sort of like a scuba diving outfit. But one of them, which I had noticed, had hair. they were also quite short. Now, I kind of like received a message from one of these beings, and that was we were harming our planet. I guess that says a lot, because if you look at from 1994 to 2018, I mean, there's been a lot of problems. And we're still experiencing changes all over the world, which seem to be only getting worse. I mean, with that message that I received many, many years ago, I've always tried my best to give back to the community. And you know, to do my part. I'm a support worker, so I work with people with learning disabilities and mental health issues. I also find this job very rewarding, and what makes it more special is trying to help individuals live a normal life, and also respecting them and putting a smile on their faces. Randall followed our story from about 2008. And he started trying to locate us, locate the past pupils. I think like what he had said earlier on, he found me. First time I met Randall was, I think, in 2010, when he came to England and interviewed me. And he heard my story. We then again met in 2013 in LA, where we had like a reunion. So it just wasn't me that was there. There were other past students from Ariel, where we told our story again. You know, this wouldn't be possible without Randall. I mean, he believed us, and you know, he's carried on with this story. And I think when the movie's done, it's going to be amazing. It really is, and people are going to hear what we experienced and what we saw. Finally, I'd like to thank Tim and the McMenamins crew for making this possible, and for us to participate in the UFO Festival, and for us, you know, to come and share our story. So, thank you.
Thank you, Liesl. I appreciate that. That was sweet. And the other student we have here today, who was there in 1994, I actually also found in footage early on. And I was like, who is this girl? She's telling what she saw. And she was just very strong. And I found her in 2010 also. She was in Chicago, amazingly. And I'd like to bring on Salma. Mm-hmm. Okay, sure.
I think it's fine. Yeah. Hi. Good evening. Thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you especially to Tim and crew for inviting us to be part of this conference and for taking care of us this weekend. It's nice to have free drinks. I'd like to start off by telling you a little bit about myself, although you've already heard a bit. I was born in Harare, Zimbabwe. I moved to Seattle, Washington with my family in 2001 when I was 17 and a half years old. So I have spent half of my life in my homeland, which you saw, and the other half in my new homeland. I'd like to take a minute to paint a picture for you of what my life was like in 1994. I was 11 years old. I lived on a farm in a town called Goromonzi, about a 25-minute drive from Rua, where my school was located. So basically, I lived in the bush. We had 3 TV channels, not because cable was not available, but because it was expensive. And my mother believed in the power of books and encouraged us to read and play outside rather than watch TV. We had a rotary phone. You guys know that kind, the one that you literally had to twist your finger to dial around to get a number. How technology has changed. Now you can call someone with Google Assistant or voice recognition. I say all of this to illustrate that an 11-year-old today is far more woke than an 11-year-old in 1994, let alone an 11-year-old from Zimbabwe. And I say this to demonstrate that there was no outside influence to inform what I experienced, not unless you count E.T. and the Jetsons. The day of the incident, I was standing next to my then bestie, Emma, who you saw in the video with blonde hair and pigtails. We were playing our usual games during our break time, and she pointed out something in the bushes that was shining. It was maybe about 2 to 3 football fields away. I don't know. It was far. It was so bright, but I suggested that perhaps it was a reflection from the sun on the granite rocks nearby. But we both knew that was not the case. Those rocks had never shone like that before. At this point, people started to gather around and were pointing at the blinding, shiny, flashy thing, trying to make sense of it and what it was. Panic started to ensue. Some children were crying, some were in shock. What we all felt was confusion. All I was thinking of was checking on my sister, who was in grade 4, and my brother, who was in grade 3. If I felt scared, I was sure they were too, and being the big sister that I am, even at 11, I always took care of them. In an attempt to comfort Emma and perhaps myself, I reached out and grabbed my friend's hand, and we both saw what I call the being. I couldn't tell you if there were multiple beings. If they were, they all looked the same. It was about 4 foot tall. I was a very tall 6th grader. And with humanesque qualities, in that its form was similar to that of ours, with 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head, albeit an unusually sized head and shaped head, with very unusual big black eyes, and if it had a mouth and a nose, they were not visible. Our playground was bordered by a boundary of eucalyptus tree trunks, or what we call gum trees. Beyond that was tall bush. You see, Ariel used to be a farm, so the huge areas of bush made sense given where we were. We knew never to veer past those logs unless for a sporting event. That day, neither the being nor I crossed the boundary, even though it was 1 to 2 feet away from me. I could have reached out and touched it, but I couldn't move. I was frozen, stuck, literally, in the spot where I stood, and mentally because I could not break the eye lock I was engaged in. There was eerie quietness around me, and in my mind, as we locked eyes, I no longer heard the chaos of the playground. I felt timeless, stillness, captivated by this presence, unsureness of what I was looking at, but knowing it was not the norm. I now know, even if I don't make complete sense of it, it was special. Ever try to wake up from a bad dream? It's really hard work, right? As though it's like you're pushing a semi-automatic uphill. If you are able to escape, you feel exhausted and drained. That is how I felt. So very exhausted, as I worked hard to mentally break free of this eye lock and my friend's hand so that I could go and check in on my brother and sister. I found them. They were clueless about what was going on the playground, and my sister later told me that they were more confused by the fact that I had stepped into their side of the playground and that I seemed scared and confused. All I could muster was to hug them and stay with them until the chaos subsided. I am often asked what I was left feeling after the incident was over and how I went on with my day. My first thought was, shit, what the hell do I tell my parents? African parents' tolerance for bullshit is on the low end of the spectrum. And my parents were paying a lot of money for school fees. In fact, my mother found out about the event from her sister, who lived in South London at the time, and called to ask why she had seen me on the BBC News that day. My mother and father sat me down and asked me to explain what I had experienced, and the 11-year-old me relived the event for my parents. After which my mother said, well, you know better than to lie to me, and you are not a child that lies about important things. And just like that, the people I hoped believed me the most had no skepticism or doubt about my experience and my truth. It was exhausting to talk to all the press. I felt like I had to keep explaining myself because I wasn't sure if the grown-ups believed me. I had no idea what the magnitude of the event was. Heck, I didn't even recognize what it meant for me. Life just continued, and focus was recentered on school, applying to high school, and taking exams at the end of grade 7. I did have to run the cross-country course the next year, which was in which parts of the occurrences had happened, like where the craft had landed and where the beings had been around. Let me tell you, that year I broke the record and ran for my life. Literally, I was afraid I would see them again or be taken away. I think my record still stands. So how has this event played a role in how I live now? I didn't talk about it because of fear of retribution. Also, I was tired of talking about it. Also, I needed to make sense of it for myself. So I was what I call a hibernation period until Randall reached out to us in 2008. He literally slid into my DM. I thought he was joking when he mentioned wanting to continue Dr. Mack's work and expressed his interest in our experience, and I thought, gosh, not again. And how the hell did he find me? I reached out to Liesl and asked if Randall was legit, and asked if he had contacted her. And of course, we Googled him and did our own research and found out that he was the real deal. Randall met with me in 2010 in my apartment in Chicago, and for the first time, I saw the incident in a different light. Randall's ability to listen without judgment and express genuine interest in the case in a non-exploitative way helped me tackle some internalized issues that I had with the incident and what came with it. I knew I wasn't lying, I knew I had not been influenced, and I knew my truth. Thanks to Randall for sliding into my DM. Since 2010, I have been able to live in that truth and to do so unapologetically. So thank you, Randall, for igniting the spark of truth and for bringing a great guidance to us all in being able to share our story with the world in a way that is whole, accurate, relevant, and human. Your ability to tell our story has helped us in ways you will never know. Thank you. And thank you all for listening and for being part of the conversation on Other Phenomenon.
Wow, that was touching. Jeez. Oh, that's really sweet, though. I'm going to bring Liesl. Are you still here? Oh, okay. Oh, she's got the baby. So we're going to do some Q&A. I believe the mics are out there. I'm not sure yet. Cool. So yeah, just in ending this part, before we get to the questions, is I have a website, or we do, arielphenomenon.com. And we, again, we are trying to get the last funds to finish this movie, and it's really gonna be amazing. I mean, it is already amazing. We just have to do the last things to get it out to market, essentially. But you can go to arielphenomenon.com, and we have fundraising, different things. You can get T-shirts and hats and you name it. We have some good stuff there too. And if you know anybody that has deep pockets, we're looking for an executive producer to really finish it off with us. And it's important. I really believe that at the bottom of my heart. And as you can see, the witnesses, and there are lots of these wonderful ladies and gentlemen who are normal people that are amazing, who tell a story of something that happened to them that impacted their lives. So all I want to do is thank you, and we'll move on to Q&A. Thanks.
Hello? Yes, I guess.
Hi. I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind going into a little bit of detail as to what the alien communicated to you about the planet.
The message I got was we were harming the planet, and that's just about it. That's the message I got.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think something interesting about that is that in '94, that was not a big topic, the planet, so to speak, particularly in Africa. So the people that did report that, receiving images, and yeah, I think it came in images to you, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it wasn't something that was common conversation in Africa. Just wanted to say that.
Hello, I'm still trying to understand from Liesl how this, can you elaborate more on how the message was imparted to you? Did you hear a voice in your head? Did you, and what kind, or what kind of images did you get? How did it feel? Can you kind of give us a sense of how it felt to you when you received these messages?
I think at that time, I feel it was like telepathic. So I was just like glued straight into their eyes. It's like something that drew me straight into their eyes. And I got that feeling inside. Gee, it's hard to explain. It made me, I mean, I know after the, because when it came, for me it was like really quick. Eyes were, straight towards them. And I got this feeling, but I felt very, very tired afterwards. And it just disappeared.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks so much for being here and sharing your story. I'm just wondering if you had any consecutive experiences after that, like if you ever experienced missing time later, had unusual dreams, ever had marks or scars on your body that couldn't be explained, if that was a one-off incident, or do you feel that you were continued to be contacted after that first initial contact?
Is that a question for both of us?
Yeah, please.
Okay. I mean, I have had a few dreams, but I have scars that can definitely be explained. I think for me, really just making sense of the incident itself is most important to understanding what the dreams are reminding me of, and perhaps the dreams serve as a reminder to no longer suppress what that incident was about for me. So I'm still trying to make sense.
With me, I did have a dream, nightmare, if you want to call it. I'm not so sure, I can't remember exactly how many days after the incident, but I felt myself hovering, and I then found myself on the floor, which I've never fallen out of bed before. So, yeah, that was it. Never ever had anything else after that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I had a question for both girls. Did you talk to your peers after the event and compare notes? Like, one of you said you were breaking free from the stare. Yeah. So some of the kids were running away. Some of you were frozen in place. Did you? I guess I'm trying to get a feel for how many of the children there actually had this communication.
I don't know if I have an answer to that. I think that's a Randall question. I will say this, that we did talk about it amongst each other for a period of time. I mean, we were also talking to everybody else about it. So it got a bit monotonous and tiresome after a while. And I think by the time we were in grade 7, I know personally I was done. I was just done, like just no. So that was September of '94. Our school year starts in January. So by January, I had had it. And it was a new year, and I was not going to be talking about it, and we were going to be talking about other things. So that's, you know, to that extent, we had discussed amongst each other, but we had discussed so much that it was almost exhaustive.
I would say there were probably, I'd say 10%, maybe a little less than 10% of the children had this kind of message. I've had some that I know that had also received some kind of communication, but there's certain people, and I've run into this throughout this case, that don't want to talk about it. Whether it's too traumatizing for them, they don't know how to deal with it, they don't know how to fit it into their worldview, or they're afraid to how it's going to change their lives. But so I would say 10% of the children.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was just curious. I know that online there's a lot of pictures and videos of alien beings, and I'm sure a lot of them are hoaxes. And I'm just curious, have you ever seen anything online that you felt was the closest to what you saw that day, the alien beings that you saw that day?
I personally have never looked. I don't feel that I need confirmation or validation for what I saw by having something else. I realize that's a human reaction, but I've never looked. So I couldn't tell you because I don't want my memory of what I saw to be hindered by something else, which could be a natural occurrence, right? We're only human, so our memory's fallible to an extent, but I don't want that to be hindered by something else. So I've never looked.
Hi there. This is a question for both of you. Do you have a personal explanation of what the alien beings could be, like your own narrative or your own belief?
I still don't know exactly today what it was, but all I know is, like what I've explained to you, is what I saw. I definitely saw something. Don't know where it's from. Damn, if I had to see them today, I think there'd be a lot more questions
right?
that I'd like to ask. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think I feel very similarly to Liesl in that I don't believe I have any one answer. I don't know if there is one answer. And I think that, 34-year-old me is unpacking and unraveling bits and pieces of the event every day. I'm a lot more aware of things now than I was obviously at 11, but I think that there is something, there's something indicative of the timing of that incident for us. So I don't have any one answer, but I also think that that's because there isn't any one answer.
Thank you. And thank you for coming.
Thank you for
Thank you.
listening.
This is for both of you. Isley, you have a young daughter. You were kids when it happened. How's it going to affect how you pass it on to the next generation, your own kids? Does it have some kind of effect? How would
I'm going to let Liesel answer that because I have no children, so.
you will?
You're up. I just hope my kids don't have to go through what I did. It was quite scary, but also we were quite excited, or I was excited as well. But I just hope that my children don't have to go through, what I've gone through, and carrying the story. I mean, it's been over 20 years now?
Don't age us.
I wouldn't want to put my kids through that.
Is there a time you plan on telling them? Obviously.
I think when they're old enough to understand, definitely, I will tell them and, explain to them what I had seen.
I think for my hypothetical children, I think the great message for me that I've taken away from this is that the ability to live in your truth, regardless of what anybody else thinks about you, is really, really important. And that's valuable not just for everybody, but especially for a woman, and especially if you're a woman of color. And you own that. I think there's a reason why Liesl and I are up here. This is something that I want to teach my children at some stage, that, whatever it is that you believe you've experienced or you've seen, own it, hone it, and live in it. What can you take from it? What can you derive from that incident? And what can you make of it, and how do you apply it to the rest of your life? What I don't want is for, especially if I have daughters, to suppress any of these feelings or any emotions, which is something I think as women in general that we do. Really harboring this for as long as I did had, other impacts to my life that I'm now beginning to unravel. But had I known, feeling what I'm feeling now, if I'd done that in my 20s, I probably would have I feel like I would have done it a little differently. And so I just want to create a space in which we can have that conversation, much like my mom allowed me to, but not really delving too deeply into it. Maybe I can create a different environment where we can have those sort of deeper conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here tonight. After you had your experiences with the creature, the being, what happened? Did the being go back to the ship? Did the ship take off? Did you see more beings?
You go first. With me, after the incident and the message that I got, it just disappeared.
It didn't like walk back to?
No, it just...
Or float back? Or
it just disappeared.
Disappeared.
Yeah.
For me, once I was able to break eye contact, which seemed like I couldn't even tell you how long. I wasn't joking when I said timelessness was for real, timelessness and stillness. Once I broke eye contact and I let go of my friend's hand, I didn't see the being again. It was gone. I wouldn't say I saw it move anyway, it just was gone. It had disappeared, and I went to find my siblings, and I didn't see anything after that.
Did anyone see the ship after that?
I personally did not.
Your classmates, or?
I personally did not. Liesl, did you?
No.
Randall, do you know?
I would say nobody really saw it leave. One child said he did, that it just lifted up off the ground and just went down the valley really fast. That's the only report that I have of the departure. And he said it was just very, very quickly happened. And I don't believe, there were no children that I spoke with that talked about them getting back into the spacecraft. There was a lot of bizarreness throughout this whole thing, reported by a lot of people, like manipulations of time or seeing. I'm assuming that, but where these beings were seen in one place and then not seen and then seen again. Some really bizarre stuff. One of the witnesses reported seeing it crossing the field, this being as it approached them, and then seeing it stop, then seeing like it replay again. Makes me think of the cat in the movie The Matrix.
Yeah.
And
or maybe Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That too.
So some very strange things happened, and there was a lot of details and reports from individual people that witnessed it. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. This is fantastic. Question for all three of you. In a broader aspect, do you see, and we were getting bits and pieces of some of people being interviewed in the film that seem, we're going through some very emotional experiences, recollections of what happened. Do you see in a broader aspect, a deeper meaning to what you have been through or to what was being communicated that day in the schoolyard? Is there a bigger message that perhaps maybe the two of you experienced or someone else in the schoolyard experienced that is possibly trying to be conveyed in this movie or in the film or in their message?
So I think, I can only speak for myself, and I think that my journey since this incident has been trying to decipher what that deeper meaning is, and I don't have any one answer. I don't know if I ever will have an answer in this lifetime. I know there's a deeper meaning, and I acknowledge that there is one. I acknowledge what happened, and that's a start. But I don't pretend to have a one-all answer for that. I really don't. What about you, Liesl?
No.
About the same?
Yeah.
I think it's just something that I grapple with on a daily basis, right? So it's one of those things that I don't want to say you get used to, but you're like, oh, okay, it happened, and so now I've just figured out how to cope with it, right? And so this coping mechanism, if you cope with it in a manner in which you're actually working on it and you're really diving deep and figuring out some stuff, that's helpful. If you don't know what to figure out, you don't know where to start. And so I think that's really, for me personally, where I am at right now, is figuring that out. I'm sorry, that's not really a full-fledged answer, but
sure.
I want to be real. I'm keeping it 100 here, so.
All right, thank you. Thanks for being real.
So just a similar question, kind of. What were the other types of messages that the other kids got? Were they telepathic, and was there a call to action that was given to you along with the message?
Can I take this for a second?
Yeah, sure, of course, it's all you.
So, yeah, that's a very good question. I'm glad you asked that because there was no call to action, which is one of the things that Dr. John Mack found really interesting. Like, it wasn't some kind of program to like, yeah, you got to get your stuff together. Come on, human beings. It wasn't about that. The messages were just showing what is happening or what could be happening. So there was no addressing how to fix it.
It just makes you wonder why 11-year-olds?
That's a great question. But yeah, and I just had this thought when I was standing here and I was thinking, well, this is it. Why 11-year-olds? But they're sitting here right now, and a lot of these kids will probably be speaking a lot. And it left an impression on them. And maybe that is some kind of deeper meaning. I don't know, it just crossed my mind. But
thank you.
I could have had too much wine. Just kidding, I haven't drank today, but okay. Do you have any thoughts on that, Liesl?
I feel that it definitely happened for a reason. I mean, the age difference was, it was quite, I think from grade ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, from grade ones
Did you
to
interview any
about,
grade ones and grade twos?
yeah,
I did.
Yeah.
yeah, from grade ones to about 12-year-olds.
Yeah. So from
Um,
6 to
12, yeah. So I definitely believe they came to us for a reason. I mean, with the message that I got, you know, that we're harming the world. That was one of the messages. And as kids, I'm sure we don't tell lies. So definitely, you know, it was maybe for us to spread our word and try and get our story out there and warn people.
Hi. So as a repeat experiencer, I can't adequately express how grateful I am for your courage in being here today and for speaking your truth.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. I'm interested in how your perceptions of these entities have changed over time, if they have.
Well, I think personally for me, not being afraid to speak about it is my biggest change. It's also my biggest start. So this is the first platform on which both Liesl and I have spoken to this many people about the event. So, yay, thanks, guys. I think learning about this, this network of like-minded people is very helpful. It has certainly made it much easier to be able to share my story with you in a different way, where I wanted to tell it to you in a story form that, in the way that I remembered it. You know, what I wrote was something, what I explained to you today was something I had written a little while ago. You know, I tweaked some things, but I had written it a while ago because I wanted to write it down in sort of a poetic way. You know, I didn't want it to just be stagnant. But I think being able to tell my story and be unapologetic about it is really my biggest change. What I'm deriving from the story is something that I continue to learn, and I'm very happy about that. And I'm glad that I don't just have like one answer, because then, I mean, what the hell would be the point after all that, I think? You know, it's sort of just like anticlimactic. So for me, that's the biggest change. So learning that there's a network of people who feel the same way, absolutely love it. Thank you. It makes our ability to share our experience without criticism or judgment or skepticism that much easier for us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Please, do you have anything? Hi.
Hello. My question regards, you said you were fearful, and I was wondering, was it a fear of like, could you compare it to a feeling that I would have not having an experience like this, like driving a car for the first time or falling from a farther distance? Was it like a slow roll feeling that like overtook you, or was it just an instant like smack that grabbed you instantly?
Is that for me or Liesl, or both?
Both of you, sorry.
Liesl, you go first. I'm talking too much.
I think for me, it was, it just grabbed me there and there, just instantly. Yeah.
I think the fear, definitely for me, was not that I felt that my life was in danger, per se, but that I did not understand what the hell was going on. And I didn't know what I was looking at. I didn't know what I was feeling. I'd never felt this, like, timelessness before. I had no words. I had no verbiage to make sense of what was going on. And as humans, we try to do that, right? We find tangible things to connect to our experience or our feeling or something. You try to rationalize, and I had no rationalization. So I think not having that rationalization led to fear because I simply did not understand or recognize what I was looking at. But to say that I felt that I was in fear for my life personally, I did not. Please, how about you? Would you say that you felt that you felt like your life was in danger?
No, I definitely didn't feel like my life was in danger. Obviously, if they wanted to do something to us,
They would have.
They would have. I think that, they were just out there for us to tell the story, and tell everyone how we felt, what we experienced, and the message we received, just to get it out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for coming out here today. I really appreciate you guys having the courage to get up here and share this very personalized and intimate experience. So thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Well, he actually stole my question, but I have another one. So I was just wondering if you guys have had any repeat experience with like a similar energy or feeling in your life, like up to the present from that moment.
No, not me.
Yeah, neither have I. Other than the dreams, like that's about it. Yeah.
Randall, have you noticed that any of the other children have had any other experiences with any other entities since then?
I'd say a couple. I'd say 3 so far that I've talked to. It's hard to get people to talk about that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's, yeah. And they don't know whether it's dreams or, an actual experience or not. But it's interesting that they even have that. That people do have nightmares, that I find interesting. And that's more than a few people that have had nightmares, about that day.
Well, thank you very much for sharing. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for being here. I'd like to ask for Liesel and anyone else who had the telepathic communication, if anyone experienced like two-way communication, did any of the entities respond to any of the children's thoughts or things? And then I'd also like to ask, in retrospect, from what you just said, the way the creatures seem to just vanish, has anyone had the thought that these may have been holograms, holographic images projected?
In Zimbabwe? In 1994, sir, where we had
not by humans, not by humans, by extraterrestrials.
Oh, okay.
If the whole thing,
It's like,
for example, there could have been a mothership projecting these holographic images down in front of you, and they could have blinked out like that. Even the craft could be a holographic image that could blink out.
I don't know. I can't answer that. I don't know. I saw what I saw. I received that message, and yeah, that's about it.
No, like two-way that you experienced?
No, no.
Yeah, I've not had any of the children who had that experience say that they had any control over that communication, or that they were able to respond.
Right.
That it was very one way.
Okay. Yeah, like if a child was afraid, did any of them get a message from the beings, don't be afraid?
That I'm not sure of.
I think that was just more a sense of feeling. It wasn't necessarily a message that came through, because Liesel and I were we were in the same playground, but we were not next to each other. We were in different parts of the playground, but neither of us felt fearful for our lives. But that was also not communicated to us through a message. I think it was more of a feeling. I think the message was just more of a feeling.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to all 3 of you for being here today, and you ladies for having the courage to come forward as adults. Question for Randall. Will you be able to incorporate any BBC archival footage into your documentary?
Yes, absolutely. It's some of the most important footage in my mind. Next to John Mack and all the other stuff, but the BBC reporter footage is really important because he was the first one there. Mm-hmm. And he covered it as a skeptic. and you can tell that when you start to listen to him, but he was just, but he was doing his job. So yeah, a lot of the BBC footage is priceless, and it was the first day. So yes.
Randall mentioned that Ariel is a Christian school, and I wonder if this experience has had any impact on your faith.
Well, I was not raised Christian, but it did not impact my faith. I think my parents' ability to hear me out and not judge or say, well, this can't be true because, it goes against what we believe in, really helped me to recognize that actually faith had nothing to do with it. Like belief in a religion had nothing to do with it. Faith in what you saw in your experience had more to do with it. That's just me.
Well, I'm a Christian, and while I still believe, there's definitely something out there. Obviously, we witnessed it. But it hasn't affected, my faith. And I'm lucky that, as well, my parents have stood by me and believed my story as well.
Yeah. We're very lucky in that sense because not everybody's parents did that.
Yeah.
And I think that plays a huge role in the coping mechanism since, and your ability to deal with the trauma of the incident. So thanks, moms.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you all for being here and for telling this incredible story. I was just curious if any of the students had a medical exam or any sort of testing immediately following the experience to know if there were any sort of short-term physiological effects or anything like that that might have been detected.
No.
Okay.
We went back to class.
Oh, okay.
Like nothing happened, other than the press being around. But, I don't know if anybody ever did have a medical exam, Randall, that you know of after the fact. But to my knowledge, absolutely not.
No, I was supposed to for regression.
Right after it happened,
Yeah,
though?
2013.
Oh, no, but that's much later,
Yeah.
though. Yeah.
No, but no.
Okay.
So yeah, there was an EMT that was in Zimbabwe who treated 3 children, not you guys, but
No.
treated 3 other children that were very traumatized. But I don't know the extent of, I don't think it was a medical exam. I think he was trying to calm them down because they were not able to go back to the school. They couldn't sleep. So that's as far as any medical intervention, other than John Mack as being a child psychiatrist. This paramedic, as far as I know, is the only other medical licensed person or whatever to deal with the children. But there were children that were highly traumatized and did not sleep and would not go back to the school for some time. Yep.
I just wondered if there were any adults at all that witnessed this? Was it only children?
Well, the teachers were in the staff meeting, so none of them were allowed. This was probably one of the few times that we actually didn't have adult supervision on
Yeah,
the
I
playground.
wondered,
And that's because they had a staff meeting, but because we were grade 6s and the grade 7s were taking an exam, we were the big kids on the block. So that was very fun to us. We really felt, we kind of were getting a feel for what it was going to be like the next year because we would have been the oldest ones, right? But I actually completely forgot about the tuck shop and the person being in the tuck shop. So thank you for reminding us of that because that was the one person because we still needed our candies.
That's right, especially after that.
That was important. They gave us that. But other than that, no, not that I can even think of, like not even a grounds person. I just don't remember because we had to go and somebody went to tell the teachers.
Randall, do you know?
Yes. So yeah, well, hundreds of people were in. It was like 100. I remember Mr. Vernon saying 100 kids ran into the staff room screaming.
Yeah.
It was a big deal. One of the grounds workers that I found, he heard them screaming. He was not, he was not on the playground, but he heard them screaming. I interviewed him about that. There was a grade 1 teacher. So I'm interviewing some of the kids, and I kept hearing about this grade 1 teacher that the kids say saw this. Grade 1s and 2s that I interviewed. And the BBC reporter told me that the grade 1 teacher was in her classroom, by the way, was in perfect view of what was going on. She could see that. So anyway, I was told that by several people. The BBC reporter told me that he had heard there was a teacher that witnessed it, and the school would not allow that teacher to be interviewed. The teacher left 2 weeks after the incident, and I've been trying to find her, and then I finally found out she had passed away 2 years after the incident. And I'm still trying to contact some members of her family to see if she had said something to them. So that story, I chased that story down for a while because it was important. And I believed the kids. They had said that, several of the kids, the grade 1s and 2s, who were never interviewed, by the way. So, they say 60 school children. Well, that's not including the grade 1s and 2s. They never interviewed the grade 1s and 2s. So I did. I found the grade 1s and 2s, several of them, and they were the ones that told me, yeah, this teacher, I won't say her name, they came in off the playground and told her what they saw, and this teacher went out on her own to see what happened, and when she came back, they said her face was white. So this came from more than one child that told me this story.
And she was never interviewed by the BBC or anything?
They didn't, no, for some reason, the BBC, the guy knew, the reporter knew that somebody had seen it. He had heard that from somebody, one of the kids. And then when he asked to interview this person, they would not allow her to be interviewed for whatever reason. I don't understand. So that's sort of one of those red herrings, not really, but I really would love to have had conclusive data on that, and I would still love to speak to the family if she did indeed share it. I'm sure she did. So I'd love to talk to her daughter or someone in the family. Yeah.
So I was curious, did Dr. John Mack or anybody ever do any hypnosis or regression on any of the children?
No.
No.
Yeah, no, he did not. Yeah.
Okay, this is about the communication, which is interesting to me. Liesl had a message. Saloma had eye lock. And this is simultaneously at the same moment. Did the other children report any kind of like one-on-one sort of thing? And what does it suggest about the form of communication that might have been taking place? Lots of kids, some feelings of one-on-one, but all at the same time. I find that interesting. Do you any more thoughts on that?
I think that's a you question.
Okay. I mean, I'm totally open, but yeah, the kids reported this. I just find this so fascinating because as they were explaining it to Dr. Mack, they, about these messages that they had in their head, Dr. Mack asked them, well, how did that get communicated to you? Did they say something, or how did they get that communicated to you? And the answer was by several children that it just came through my head, or came into my head. And the one that cracks me up the most is, it came into my conscience. I'm like, it's such an innocent way to describe telepathy. Because they didn't know what it was, but that's the only way that could describe that how a piece of information could get transferred from this thing's eyes into their heads. I don't know if that answers the question completely. Is that? Yeah, the whole communication thing is really interesting. It happened to individuals. Another thing I love, they asked Liesel, I think they asked Salma, other people, like, were they looking at you? And the answer to all the kids is like, no, they were looking at all of us. So it wasn't like an individual thing, like, yeah, they were looking at me. It was a realization from really young kids, like, no, they were looking at all of us. So there's a lot of different things that are involved in this, the proximity of where people were to this thing, this creature. Some people were at different locations on the playground. I mean, there was a big gathering of people by the rock, but there were people in other locations also, so they saw slightly different points of view. Anyway, anything else to add? Hi.
Hello. First, I thank you from my heart for sharing your experience and for your wonderful, I know, very hard work for sharing this with all humanity, because with all the increase in awareness and the study in like quantum sciences, and as the Hopi native people said, that we don't look outside ourselves for the leaders, we are the ones we have been waiting for. And my main question is, how has this expanded your enlightenment or your awareness or your consciousness as part of the universe, of the cosmos, and of all life? Does all of you?
I think, for one, I know what the hell enlightenment means, or I'm learning. You know, I've discovered what that word means. I think it is. It's a constant learning scale, like I said earlier, and I don't quite know what to make of it, but I know I will make something of it. And I think that a part of my learning is discovering what that is.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Thank you kindly.
Thank you.
I think it's helped me a lot to just think of things in a different way. I think of, it started with me in Africa when I was, researching this and interviewing people, and also going out into the wildlife and photographing lions and hippos and elephants, and I don't know, this thing just really started to hit me like, wow, what's the difference between what they're doing and what we're doing? I hung out with primatologists who tagged, baboons and other animals, lions, elephants. They tag them and track them and, check them out. They're not really trying to hurt them. They're just trying to learn from them. And I just thought, maybe that's what's going on with us, So that kind of, this event and researching this event made me try to think differently and think, I don't know, it doesn't scare me anymore. It kind of makes sense. It's like this, we're just part of this whole different levels of species. We're just part of it. And there's a lot more we don't know, and there's a heck of a lot more we need to learn, and I don't know. That's been my enlightenment. I know enlightenment has many different incarnations, but.
Hello. Hi. Thank you for being here. I was just curious, during the time that you had your eyes locked in and you were getting the message, did you sense anything like what could be defined as a human emotion, like curiosity or even compassion, or anything you felt in that way?
I mean, I don't recall receiving a message. I just had this experience where our eyes were locked. But that's not to say that because I don't recall it, it didn't happen. I simply just have no memory of it. Because I have no memory of a message, I can't answer that question and tell you if I felt compassion or anything. I was trying. I felt still. I felt stuck, and I didn't fully understand what was going on, and all I could think about was my brother and sister.
Yeah.
That was on my mind, because in that moment, feeling stuck and still, physically stuck, mentally stuck, was scary. It was a little bit scary. And I felt that if I felt scared, surely they felt scared. I couldn't get to them. My only concern was my brother and sister.
Well, as an 11-year-old, with what happened, as far as I can remember, just receiving the message, being scared, but also excited at the same time. Yeah, that's all I can remember.
Thank you. And from them, did you feel anything that you could define as a human emotion or anything, or was it just more of a blank stare from them, or just so locked in, like you were saying?
I think just the lock-in.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just two quick questions. One, I was going to ask, you said the BBC reporter was a skeptic. Has his views changed at all? And second question, kind of going off what she said, is just a general feeling. Did you feel benevolence, a malevolence, or an indifference from this being at all? And again, it's kind of going off what she asked, so.
The BBC reporter did change over time. He was very skeptical in the beginning, and the more kids he interviewed, the more, he says it himself, he started to get goosebumps. Yeah, it changed his life, actually, toward the end, when he left Zimbabwe. He went from a skeptic to somebody who really believed that they were all telling the truth. Yeah, so he went through quite a growth and shift. Yeah. But what was the second question?
It was just a question of if there was a general feeling from the beings, if there was a benevolence from them, a malevolence from them, or an indifference from them towards the kids.
I don't know if it was any one thing, really. From my experience, it was like we were looking at each other through, like looking at each other at an exhibition. They were looking at us, we were looking at them. Who are you? Who are you? Who are you looking at me?
Almost
looking
an
at you?
indifference?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if that's the word you want to use, I wouldn't think it's indifference. I would think it was more curiosity, really, if we're going to put an adjective on it.
Like
I
a
guess.
scientific and curious.
Yeah, I mean, just curious.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
This question is for Salma. You've said that you were concerned about your brother and sister or your siblings.
Yes.
Do you feel that that the being let you escape, or do you feel that you perhaps overpowered the being and was able to break that bond on your own?
Well, listen, I like to think that I'm powerful, damn it. So I would like to say that I don't know. That is a fantastic question.
Yeah.
I will tell you this. I felt absolutely exhausted. And when I use the analogy of trying to come out of a bad dream, and we've all had it, you fight really hard to come out of this nightmare, and when you do emerge from it, you're exhausted because it's like taking this energy from you, and you think, what the heck is that? Now looking back on it, I think I was probably less in control than I thought, and I appreciate them releasing me because, I just wanted to check on my siblings. But I think that was a huge part of it for me. I was not the only person on the playground with siblings, but my last thought before the stillness and the eerie quietness sunk in was, oh my God, where are my brother and sister, and are they okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my question's for Selma or Randall, if you have any answers. But you said that when you were locking eyes, you were holding hands with your good friend, and that when you lost like the sense of time and kind of like awareness, did your friend have anything to say about like how much time had gone by, or what were her experiences when she was she locking eyes as well, or like what was her encounter, kind of?
I think I'll let Randall answer that. She had a different encounter.
That was Emma, right?
Yeah, that was Emma, even though we were standing right next to each other. So
Yeah, Emma also got a message across to her, which was around technology and our use of technology, and that technology was not going to help us. Her words were, we shouldn't get too technologed. That's what she heard from them. That's interesting that you were holding her hand. That's very interesting. Wow.
yeah, yeah. So we're standing right next to each other, and each of us have completely differing experiences. So it's kind of.
Maybe you shouldn't let it go of her hand. It just hit me. So
I mean, maybe,
I'm not
yes, but again, for me,
Oh, no, you had to do it.
I had to go save my brother and sister.
But I never
I
even
think really I was saving myself, if I'm being honest, because, yeah, I don't know what would have happened had I not let go of her hand, because the moment I did, everything else, I let go of her, I dropped the gaze. Finally, I was able to pull from it, dropped her hand, and then went to check on my brother and sister. And
Wow.
time picked up. I could now hear things. I could hear the playground in chaos. And
Great question.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
No.
Yeah. No, thank all of you. This has been tremendous. Really appreciate it. But I have a question, a clarification maybe about the sense of time. Randall, didn't you say that the episode took maybe 15 minutes? Is that right?
That's correct. That's what was reported by the headmaster. The headmaster reported that, and also one of the children reported that. So I just have two facts that state that. That's a long period of time.
That's a long period of time, and what you guys are talking about sounds like that.
Yeah.
What, do you have any?
Or
other-
longer. I mean, I don't know.
You don't know, yeah.
I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have an answer to that other than a lot of questions. Like what happened during that time period and what happened. Yeah. Maybe they're really slow at getting stuff done.
Maybe so.
I have no idea.
All right.
They're just another government agency.
Well, once again, thank you for coming. I think this conversation has had more impact on me than any that I've heard. This is only my second
thank you.
festival. But it's just so kind of you to share your stories. And I've been feeling this maybe fear and compassion and kind of mixed emotions about what will happen when the movie is actually released. You're presenting this to a friendly and receptive and caring audience. Not everybody will react that way.
True.
Have you considered how to handle that?
Yep. In the movie, it's handled, and
Oh, okay.
Just kidding.
I'm ready.
That was
I'm ready
very
for all of
impolite.
it. I've
You got it covered, huh?
Yeah, I got it covered.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
good to
I'm
know,
ready.
then.
I'm ready for Bill Nye. I'm ready for.
Okay, I can
Yeah.
sleep now. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks.
What were some of the other messages that were expressed that the aliens were communicating? We heard that we're wrecking the world and don't use your technology. That won't help. What were some of the other communications?
Some of the other communications were, I mean, even one woman, or one now woman, I believe she was 12, felt like they were trying to say something to her but she didn't understand what it was about something that was going to happen in the future. That was her report. One of the other young males, he was in grade 3, I believe. He reported that it was around what we were doing to the planet, pollution, that we were destroying the planet. Similar message, different images, which is interesting. I don't think of the other one. There's several, but they're pretty much all around the idea that what we're doing to the planet. Yeah. There's a couple more. I know there's another one who didn't want to be interviewed, but I know what he was told because, he had shared what the messages that he got to other friends who I've spoken to, but it was the same thing. So I don't know what that means. I mean, part of me, it was 1994. This conversation was not in the mainstream, really, at that time, particularly in Africa. But it's sure fascinating. And I wonder, we like to clean cages of our animals, and we do have forestry programs to keep the wildlife from overpopulating and keeping it clean, so to speak, and maybe that's what happened. I don't know. A lot of questions, not a lot of answers. Oh.
Yay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Big
you
round of
very much.
applause.
Thank you, Peter, for emceeing.
This has been great. Thank you. This has been one of the most exciting presentations.